Imagine a cluttered laboratory bench in central London, forgotten for weeks while a quiet Scottish researcher takes a summer holiday, only to return and find that a single contaminated petri dish has accidentally rewritten the entire trajectory of human medicine. This is not a myth or a dramatized legend, but the precise, documented reality of the moment that birthed the modern antibiotic era and saved hundreds of millions of lives across the globe. The man who witnessed this phenomenon did not possess grand laboratory facilities, nor did he command a team of dozens of specialists. He relied instead on meticulous observation, an unshakable patience, and a deeply intuitive understanding of microbial behavior that allowed him to recognize a biological anomaly that others would have simply washed away. His journey from a modest Scottish farming community to the highest echelons of medical science is a profound testament to the power of scientific curiosity, proving that groundbreaking discoveries often emerge not from calculated perfection, but from the careful examination of unexpected imperfections. To understand his legacy is to understand the very foundation of contemporary pharmacology, a landscape permanently transformed by a researcher who treated every failed experiment as a potential doorway to medical revolution. The genesis of this unparalleled scientific phenomenon began in the summer of 1881 in the quiet, windswept village of Lochfield, located in the rural heart of Ayrshire, Scotland. Born into a large, hard-working farming family, his early environment was defined by agricultural rhythms, modest financial means, and a deep appreciation for self-reliance and practical problem-solving. The sudden passing of his father during his childhood forced a significant relocation to London, where he found work as a shipping clerk and night student, navigating the stark contrast between the bustling metropolis and his rural upbringing. Rather than accepting a life of administrative routine, he pursued evening classes and correspondence courses, gradually accumulating the academic credentials necessary to enter medical training. His enrollment at St. Mary's Hospital Medical School marked the decisive turning point in his trajectory, providing him with the structured scientific environment he had long sought. He quickly distinguished himself through a quiet, methodical approach to laboratory work, favoring precision over showmanship and demonstrating a natural aptitude for bacteriological research that would later define his entire career. Following his graduation and qualification as a surgeon in 1906, he made the pivotal decision to remain within the academic and research sphere rather than pursuing clinical practice. He secured a position as a research assistant and lecturer under the guidance of Sir Almroth Wright, a pioneering immunologist whose work on vaccine therapy profoundly influenced his understanding of host pathogen interactions. This mentorship period established the foundational principles that would guide his scientific methodology, emphasizing rigorous experimental design, careful documentation, and a healthy skepticism toward established medical dogmas. The outbreak of the First World War temporarily interrupted his laboratory routine, prompting him to serve as a captain in the Royal Army Medical Corps. Deployed to the Western Front, he witnessed firsthand the devastating limitations of contemporary wound management protocols. He observed that commonly used antiseptic solutions, while effective at surface disinfection, frequently caused severe tissue damage, impaired natural healing processes, and created environments where anaerobic bacteria thrived in deeper wounds. This critical battlefield observation planted the seed for a lifelong scientific pursuit, convincing him that the future of infection control would depend not on harsh chemical agents, but on naturally occurring biological compounds capable of selectively neutralizing harmful microorganisms without damaging human tissue. Returning to St. Mary's Hospital after the armistice, he resumed his research with renewed focus and a clearly defined objective. He began systematically investigating natural bodily secretions, searching for endogenous antimicrobial properties that could inform the development of safer therapeutic agents. This line of inquiry culminated in the discovery of lysozyme in 1921, an enzyme naturally present in human tears, saliva, and mucous membranes that demonstrated remarkable capacity to break down bacterial cell walls. Although lysozyme ultimately proved ineffective against the most dangerous pathogenic bacteria, its identification represented a significant conceptual breakthrough. It validated his hypothesis that biological systems already contain sophisticated defensive mechanisms, and it refined his laboratory techniques, particularly in the areas of bacterial culture preparation, microscopic observation, and enzymatic activity measurement. The publication of his lysozyme research established his growing reputation within the medical research community, demonstrating his ability to design elegant experiments and extract meaningful conclusions from complex biological interactions. This period of methodical investigation honed the precise observational skills that would soon converge with a singular, history-altering laboratory accident. The defining moment of his career arrived in September 1928, following a brief summer holiday that left his laboratory workstations temporarily unattended. Upon his return, he began sorting through stacks of petri dishes containing staphylococcal cultures, preparing to discard them in the routine course of laboratory maintenance. As he examined one particular dish, he immediately noticed an unusual and highly significant anomaly. A contaminating mold colony had established itself on the surface of the agar medium, and surrounding this fungal growth was a distinctly clear zone where the staphylococcal bacteria had completely dissolved. Rather than dismissing the contaminated sample as a procedural failure, he recognized the biological implication of the observation. The mold was actively secreting a substance that inhibited bacterial growth and effectively destroyed pathogenic microorganisms. He meticulously identified the contaminant as a species of penicillium, later classified as Penicillium notatum, and began a series of systematic experiments to isolate and characterize the antibacterial agent. He demonstrated that the substance remained effective even when heavily diluted, exhibited low toxicity to human cells, and possessed a broad spectrum of activity against gram-positive bacteria responsible for some of the most lethal infections of the era. Despite the profound implications of his initial findings, the practical challenges of isolating and stabilizing the compound proved extraordinarily difficult. The active substance exhibited extreme chemical instability, degraded rapidly during purification attempts, and resisted consistent extraction methods available in 1929 laboratory conditions. He managed to produce a crude, impure concentrate sufficient for preliminary testing, documenting its remarkable antibacterial properties in a carefully written research paper that same year. The publication, however, received minimal attention from the broader scientific and medical communities. Researchers largely viewed the substance as a laboratory curiosity rather than a viable therapeutic agent, and the technical barriers to mass production appeared insurmountable with existing pharmaceutical infrastructure. Rather than abandoning the research, he continued to explore its potential applications, preserving fungal strains, refining cultivation techniques, and maintaining detailed records of its biological effects. This period of relative obscurity was not a failure of scientific vision, but a reflection of the significant gap between initial discovery and clinical translation, a gap that would ultimately be bridged by the next generation of researchers. The transformation of his initial observation into a life-saving medical reality required the collaborative intervention of a dedicated research team at the University of Oxford. In the late 1930s, a group of scientists led by Howard Florey and Ernst Chain recognized the therapeutic potential hidden within his original findings and initiated a comprehensive project aimed at isolating, purifying, and testing the compound under controlled conditions. Their work represented a monumental advancement in biochemical engineering, developing sophisticated extraction protocols, establishing stable dosage formulations, and conducting rigorous animal trials that conclusively demonstrated the compound's safety and efficacy. The first successful human trials produced miraculous recoveries in patients suffering from severe, previously untreatable bacterial infections, providing irrefutable evidence that the substance could revolutionize clinical medicine. The onset of the Second World War introduced an urgent, existential imperative to scale production rapidly, as military medical units faced overwhelming casualties from infected battlefield wounds, gangrene, and systemic sepsis. International cooperation between British researchers, American pharmaceutical laboratories, and government agencies accelerated fermentation optimization, deep tank cultivation, and quality control standardization, transforming a fragile laboratory extract into a globally distributed therapeutic commodity. The widespread deployment of the purified antibiotic during the final years of the conflict and the immediate post-war period triggered an unprecedented shift in medical practice. Surgical procedures that had previously carried extremely high mortality rates due to postoperative infections became significantly safer. Complex trauma recovery improved dramatically, and previously fatal conditions such as pneumonia, syphilis, and bacterial meningitis transitioned from terminal diagnoses to treatable illnesses. The compound effectively inaugurated the modern era of antimicrobial therapy, fundamentally altering hospital protocols, expanding the boundaries of surgical intervention, and extending average human life expectancy across developed nations. Recognizing the monumental significance of this medical advancement, the scientific community awarded him the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1945, an honor he shared jointly with the Oxford researchers whose technical expertise had transformed his initial observation into clinical reality. His acceptance remarks and subsequent public addresses consistently emphasized the collaborative nature of scientific progress, repeatedly acknowledging the indispensable contributions of his colleagues while issuing a prescient warning about the inevitable development of microbial resistance if the compound were used indiscriminately or in insufficient dosages. Throughout his highly decorated career, he maintained a remarkably modest personal lifestyle, consistently rejecting the trappings of celebrity and remaining deeply committed to the practical realities of laboratory research and medical education. He married twice, cultivating a stable family life that provided emotional grounding amidst the relentless demands of academic responsibilities and public recognition. His personal habits reflected a quiet, unpretentious temperament, characterized by a deep appreciation for gardening, amateur photography, and the simple pleasures of rural retreats that offered respite from the pressures of institutional leadership. Within the laboratory, he was known for a highly organized yet seemingly chaotic workspace, a deliberate approach that prioritized experimental accessibility over aesthetic neatness, and allowed him to quickly identify anomalies that might otherwise be overlooked in sterile, overly controlled environments. He mentored numerous junior researchers, emphasizing rigorous documentation, critical thinking, and the intellectual humility required to acknowledge when experimental results contradicted established theories. His teaching philosophy centered on the belief that scientific progress depends not on flawless execution, but on the willingness to investigate the unexpected and the courage to challenge conventional assumptions. The legacy of this extraordinary researcher extends far beyond the initial discovery itself, encompassing a fundamental restructuring of global healthcare systems and a permanent elevation of microbiology as a cornerstone of modern medicine. His work catalyzed the development of subsequent antimicrobial classes, inspired decades of pharmaceutical innovation, and established the foundational principles of antibiotic stewardship that continue to guide clinical practice today. The initial accidental observation has grown into a multi-layered scientific enterprise that addresses evolving pathogen resistance, explores novel antimicrobial mechanisms, and integrates advanced genomic technologies into therapeutic development. His historical trajectory demonstrates that transformative breakthroughs frequently emerge from the intersection of prepared minds and unplanned circumstances, rewarding those who combine technical competence with open-minded observation. From a Scottish farming household to the frontiers of immunological research, his journey remains a compelling illustration of how quiet dedication, methodical inquiry, and unwavering intellectual integrity can alter the course of human health. He did not merely identify a mold-derived compound, he unlocked a biological principle that continues to sustain modern medicine, leaving behind a legacy of scientific humility, collaborative innovation, and enduring global impact that will inform medical practice for generations to come.